mods used, same basic ones still. So okay, and what I wanted to show in this video is the oil setup. Let's go to my oil. And also train station conditions. So for the longest time I didn't realize that the first condition, or not first condition, the condition for a train to go to a station and stay there indefinitely is just this one. The default one for cargo. It's just item count and you don't specify anything. And the train will just, you know, whenever, well, that's a universal statement. The train will always stay in that station. So let's see, I organized my oil in this setup around trains, but really this works for the startup setup. So we have a coal for the plastics, and we need copper for the thing. What's it called? Wire? Cable.
I am not convinced this is a Sarif job. The tech itself is super high-end, but the PDOT insulation, sloppy. The bone mounting, mounted on the quick, just doesn't have Sarif's touch.
And also we need, well, a pipe of propane and the water. So this... Oh, not even water, sorry. Water is for the batteries, but you just need to make space for it. So these are the only propane connections that you will need because the batteries use acid and processing, I'll show you. Batteries use acid, processing units use acid, and that's it, they don't use propane directly. So these are the only pipe connections you will need, and distributing the acid couldn't be easier. I have them on a 2-layer setup here. So basically you have your input of copper and iron plates. Why am I freezing up? Yeah. So you have water into acid, water into here. You know, leaving a pipe from the side and then, you know, distributing it this way is the best way not to interfere with inserters and belts and thing. So you will need this kind of belt for the sulfur, you know, underground belt. Underground belt is needed because of the poles. There's not enough space for them, or in my setup at least, because I like to build compact. Because in another thing I had them, you could build them, you know, if you have space just up here, and then you don't need to use underground belt. But I just squeezed them up pretty tightly, so maybe it's not the best one to use. Yeah, so quite easy. Batteries is straightforward recipe. Robot frames are a bit more complicated, but you know, you just need green, and I mix them with steel, and you will need plates, belt. I mean, producing these locally is the best thing, I think. And maybe you want to produce greens as well locally. So if you're into that, there's a different kind of setup for that. But you need gears and pipe, you know, on another belt, and then you just use a double belt single side setup. And you can just put your factory here and continue extending this belt. So for example, this would make construction robots. It takes frame and green, and you already have those ingredients. Logistics robots are a bit more tougher. So for example, you would have them like so, or maybe even like so, if you have the logistics network. So you would put the robot frames in, not frames, the robots in the chest or something, or maybe straight away into a roboport. Let's see, you would extend these belts, nothing much changes about them, and you would repeat the setup. So frame, engine. Let's see. And I used the maximum reduction to pollution with the chips. So 3 chips and 1 speed module. But that's for later game. Yeah, so you just extend these belts and you can make, you know, thing. Just remember to add the lubricant pipe. It all works out nicely. But this one needs an advanced circuit. But if you make your first logistics robot by hand, you can just, you know, make a chest. Wow. Make a yeah, that's the whole map actually. I built it the slow way. I didn't realize at the time that I could go a lot faster with automated building. So that's why these lines are of belt are you know, that they are manually placed. But compare them to these are, you know, well, not this portion. This portion I built the most effective way. But back to the thing. So red production is straightforward as well. I just used 2 rows of it because the crafting speed, I find, you know, for the amount that you need them, I find that you need a lot more production, because with only these things, or maybe even one, you can pretty much keep up with it. What I suggest you do is you distribute your propane like in the smart way. So let's see, the propane goes into batteries and into plastics. Right now I have them set up to distribute evenly, so you'll need these 2 small pumps and 1 storage tank, and also the research for it. This research. So you have your propane belt. Oh man. It goes into the tank, and then it distributes 2 ways, to batteries and to. So you can set it up, you know, whichever way you want. You can stop one, enable the other, but basically it sits on the same condition. I chose 3 because it takes in 3. See, it consumes 3, and this thing consumes also 3 to produce 2 sulfur. But basically when the tank has 3, or, well, I mean, since it only, you know, since they only distribute the excess amount, so, and well, it never dips below, so you could even use just 1. So the condition for the pump to be enabled, whenever there's more oil than 3, and the storage tank can hold 2500. It doesn't show it here, but the mouse over says 2.4k, but it's actually 2500. Yeah, so whenever, you know, for example, we have 1 oil in petroleum gas in it, and so 5 flows in, right? Sudden burst. So that you know, these 2 pumps will start distributing them evenly, because they have the same throughput. You know, these 2 things will get the same amount of that 5 that flows in, and once it reaches 1, because fluid has floating point number or something, it can go to 0.6 and stuff like that. Small pump doesn't bend the flow. It cannot take in a vertical flow and output it horizontally like a boiler does. If you want to add a pump, you need to think, you know, you need to make space for 3 pipes. But I should have started with the barrels, mate, I think. I have a train. Let's call it in. Let's see. I think the barrels are the more superior way of handling things, because they leave the empty barrels leave a buffer in the outposts, and the oil will always fill up, and you know, this way the oil is always sitting here, whereas the tanks, like this tank as well, just doesn't have the capacity, you know, the superior capacity of barrels, and they're not too tough to handle. But basically, let's go over it. So you have it connected to your pipes going into refineries. This refinery setup is the worst. You should leave them horizontally, because you only need 5 refineries. Yeah, that's the ratio. 5, 1 heavy oil cracking, 7 light oil cracking. That's it. You know, if you want to increase it, you know, you just, well, I make light oil here actually. You know, it doesn't need much. And let's see, I have this. I haven't figured out the correct way, but you don't want to set up automatic seeding. So, well, we'll go over that later. How to add new barrels to the network. But basically, I added. I think I have 400 barrels in circulation. The conditions for the outposts are pretty straightforward. You know, you wait for inactivity. Because I carry 2 kinds of barrels, you know, the train could either be full with empty barrels, full with full barrels, because this thing maybe, you know, is full depending on your setup, or the train could be completely empty. So it's very hard to set it up, so inactivity works best. And the real magic happens in depot conditions. So the drop-off point, you need to, well, obviously you want to get rid of full barrels, so train should wait until it doesn't have full barrels. If it has full barrels after visiting this station, that means the oil network is full and you don't need to worry about it. So that's the first condition. Second condition, he should wait for some empty barrels, you know, because if you go to the outpost without empty barrels, it makes no sense. I mean, that means you have a situation like I do right now, that, you know, the outpost sits on full barrels. Well, I mean, this dumping station, depot, so, you know, that's also a sign that you don't need more barrels. Yeah, so the train should wait for some barrels to make the next trip worth it. And also, empty barrel is less than 1. This is an extra. When the train docks, and instead of waiting for this inactivity, I can cut a bit of time off in certain situations. We get rid of the full barrels, we get enough empty barrels to make the trip worth it, and we can just wait for an activity. You know, maybe the outpost has more empty barrels, maybe, you know, we reach our quota, but we got more barrels. But as soon as the outpost doesn't have any more barrels to give, because, you know, these full barrels empty out into empty barrels, right? And if we are actively consuming oil, these assembly machines work quite fast, and it will never kick, the inactivity will never kick in, so to speak. And also this condition is worthless actually. Or no, it should have been this inserter. Inactivity will kick in because of this delayed insertion, and every other contingency is covered by inactivity. Well, we want the train to start moving, and let's visit a mining outpost actually. Ooh. So the condition is quite simple. We just wait for inactivity, because the outpost will take care of all of these chests are connected then, I guess. It's hard to tell. Yeah, because of these, they are all connected now. Yeah. So I should check for the total one. So let's see, I used to use 100 per chest, but then I connected these, but these are unimportant. This is just an experiment. The outpost just takes care of itself, you know. You use a filter inserter to take out empty barrels, and it works when there's less than 100 barrels in the chest, you know. So I could set it up to, I use 1, 2, 3, 4, so I keep 400, so maybe I can just redefine it now since they're all connected. Outpost will take out empty barrels and dump full barrels into it. And you know, I tried to experiment around with the conditions, but the best solution I came up with was the most straightforward one. So we just have a delayed insertion. So for example, if the outpost is rich in oil, it will keep up with the inactivity condition and it will never trigger, you know, making the train unable to leave. So you gotta, depending on how fast the oil flows through your outpost, you will set this number higher. So we only move full barrels into the train when there's more than one in the chest. The outpost fills up one barrel, it puts it in the chest, but the train is still waiting for the inactivity. When we reach 2 barrels, 3 barrels, you know, this inserter will start working, and it will delay the inactivity of the train. It will take as much empty barrels as it needs, and we will get the most amount of full barrels out of the outpost, and then we will leave. Okay, so yeah, make room for the pipes. There are quite a lot of them, and I would suggest you set up the oil buffers for the heavy oil and light oil as well. I don't have it set up for light oil, but you need light oil to produce flamethrower ammo. So it takes both the oils, and I have a pretty simple setup. So again, a storage tank, because that's the only thing that you can connect to the circuit network, and it will only work when there's when you're almost full on oil. Or maybe you can add more tanks if you want to, you know, to make sure that you process only the excess oil into cracking. So let's see, the pump, you know, checks for when there's more than this oil, it starts to work, and you know, we process it into before advanced oil cracking. You'll need some way to get rid of the heavy oil, and like I said before, you know, first thing I suggest you store it up, but the rest you use into solid fuels. So basically this recipe, or in case of you can convert it directly into lubricant, I guess. That's the other use for heavy oil. So don't be in a hurry to set up oil cracking setup. Okay, this is where the action part begins to give you a perspective. You have a substation, you have your laser turrets. Wall is optional, it's not required. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As far as the range goes of the turrets. And what this defense does, and I'll show you my setup as well. Now, as long as you stay out of the range of spitters, yeah, these biters, after a time they will, you know, they have an algorithm or something. If they can't move forward, they will start to attack your belt. And they will most certainly destroy one if you don't have enough laser turrets. So, whenever your defenses are attacked, you just, I don't know, you identify which spots need the most, you know, where the biters will move, most likely move every time in the same way. And this is how a bend would look like. So just cover enough zone that the turrets can fire and keep away out of spitter distance. And I think, you know, it works quite nicely. So, okay, that's that. I have limited visibility here and of course here when I'm hovering over. I like to go around in a car, not attached to anything, you know. I think that's the fastest way you can travel in Factorio, as it is now. And the condition port is very straightforward, simple. So let's see, these checkpoints, choke points, I need a little bit more turrets, because all the biters will jam up on this side. Don't forget to add radar. Bite me, man. Oh man. I think Factorio, you know, needs way more of these type of defenses. I was thinking, for example, a spiked ground, you know, like a ground where, you know, biters start to run on it and spikes come out. Like, you remember Prince of Persia? That first game on the super consoles? What was it? You know, 2D graphics and that stuff. So that kind of traps and stuff, and the biters cannot well, basically think of movies Saw, right? So maybe saw blades, just, you know, robotic arms of saw blades coming out, or just crazy traps like that. Just saw the biters in two. Traps that the biters do not attack directly, but, you know, give the player a lot more, you know, peace of mind. And the belts work fine at first, but when the biters, you know, cannot advance, when they check that their position hasn't moved, or I don't know, or maybe they're not attacking something in a certain interval after being aggroed onto something, they start to attack whatever is in front of them. It could be trees, it could be belts, it could be anything, right? Thanks for watching. Hope you'll, you know, learn something new. I traveled all this distance, I cleared out all the biters in between, and I set up these choke points. And I suggest you use more water in your map. You know, this is not a how to say, not a friendly map for the amount of water. My solar project, let's go there. Grip it. Yeah, so magical condition. You can travel to any station, you don't need to worry about train just randomly going off. And well, as your factory becomes bigger, I guess you can set up these cart-like trains to just travel to different locations. And they don't have a cargo wagon, so they can travel to any station, literally any station, because unless they mess with the fuel slot, you know, it's safe to travel to every type of station. Well, let's see, I would add more roboports and just continue the solar. Well, it's nighttime, so it doesn't show how many solar panels I'm using. But yeah, thanks for watching. And I really can't make long videos because of the time it takes to edit them.